Big up my GG, my GOAT, my hero, my North Star, Rick Owens. Rick Owens did a really cool cover story interview thing with ID Magazine. ID Magazine, legendary fashion, streetwear cultural magazine in general, that I've been obsessed with since its inception. I think I kind of found out about ID Magazine when I was in Central St. Martin's, I think. That was when I probably kind of got the, hip to ID, because I think at that time I went to the campus I was in, Tottenham Court Road, when I was studying fucking product design there, and they'd always recommend us to kind of read magazines and shit, and one that they recommend was obviously ID. And I've collected tons of them. I've got loads right now behind me in my collection, tracing back to the early 2000s, late 90s and shit. I've got loads of fucking covers, loads of fucking great magazine issues. But I haven't bought some recently in a while, but they always do great features, great interviews with notable people in culture, especially fashion, art, music, all that sort of stuff I'm into. So this is one courtesy of ID Magazine. It says, Rick Owens has nothing to hide. And I thought I would share it with you and read some of the interview questions and features that is on here. Courtesy of ID. Written by Steph Yokta and photography by Christina Nagel. It starts off, Rick Owens fetches me from downstairs. Calling through his palatial concrete house, do I have a date? Oh, I do. His voice heightening as he turns a corner to find me in his dining room. It's the zillionth time I've seen him, but with each time, he looks more and more like Rick Owens, the Rick Owens he dreamed himself to be. A plainer face, black hair licking at his middle back, and feet hidden in giant geo baskets, a low-cut tank, and 2 spikes piercing from his wrist up to his forearm. Becoming the platonic ideal of Rick Owens has been his life work. A billowed, whatever that word is, that stitched together a man who at 63, wow, he's 63 years old, he looks fucking fantastic, is more beautiful than he was at 23, more brilliant at 33, and each passing day becomes smarter, tougher, kinder, and more stringently himself. Over the 6 decades, he's changed a lot of his outside, but on the inside, he's remained a tender-hearted observer, taking in the world and transmuting it into his own sacred language. That's something that he doesn't get enough credit for. He looks a certain way, but whenever people speak about him in person, or whenever I watch interviews of him, he always comes across so spoken, so, gentle, so kind. As well, I remember people mentioning whenever they stopped him or they've seen him out and about in Paris, he's always really eager for a chat, stop and chat, for a picture, super chill. Same goes for Michelle Lamy. So it's always great to see people at that level, because the funny thing is, most likely, in my experience, people below him, the people that kind of hang around with him, like the harem of people that kind of loiter around Rick Owens, are probably full of themselves and pieces of shit. But him himself is a fucking great guy. I've always wondered how that works, right? The guy who designs the clothing is super chill and super nice, but then the people in and around him are the fucking assholes. It's always fucking funny when that shit happens. It continues. When I was young, my mum really liked putting me in short suits with knee socks and combing my hair he gestures to the part of his mane, slick over one eye, a tenderness of his voice as he remembers his mother. She was very much proud of her little gentleman. She always said that with her very heavy Mexican accent, which is also a funny thing as well, Rick Owens being half Mexican. The most enviable quality of Rick Owens is that gentleman's generosity. It has persisted in him at every age, in every outfit. He's warm, glamorous, but not shy, so that when you are close to him, you are captured in his shine. Sitting next to him, watching him put on his long Californian sentences together is the most magnetic experience. He could have been a poet, a performer, a podcast host, or just a big personality, but instead he makes clothes that changes our minds. Yeah, Rick Owens and Tom Ford give the best interviews in fashion nowadays, bar none. Maybe John Galliano also, but he does the madness, so we don't include him. But I think in terms of fashion interviews, no one gives better fashion interviews than Rick Owens and Tom Ford, especially early Tom Ford, when Tom Ford was still at Gucci, when Tom Ford was kind of launching his namesake brand the first couple of seasons. Like, honestly, so inspiring. When Tom Ford went through his directorial debut and did a single man and that whole thing, I loved it, honestly. Those two guys did give some of the greatest interviews. So let's scroll down. Oh, look at this picture. It features, I think, a picture of Michelle Lamy's hands on the back of Rick Owens, I'm assuming, giving him a massage with the rings and her fingertips dipped in black paint. I love all the fucking wristbands taken probably from loads of art galleries and whatnot and shows. Let's see. Do we get to the interview? I want to see. Is there an interview or is it just okay? It's the article. There you go. The interview's down here. It starts down here. Let's see some pictures here. Look at the carousel of pictures of the people that he hangs around with. Michelle Lamy wearing loads of different creations from the Rick Owens archive. Wearing stuff from Fall Winter 16. Wearing stuff from Fall Winter 24. She's fucking incredible. I love how Michelle Lamy's been embraced by like black hip hop artists now, especially the new generation. People like JT and stuff are fucking enamored by her. I love how a bunch of blogs, especially hip hop blogs on Instagram, will see her and write articles about her being a witch doctor and part of the Illuminati and shit and part of like a sacrifice you have to go through if you want to make it. It's fucking hilarious. So I love all that shit. Let's see some more pictures down here too. Pictures of Rick Owens with a model here. Michelle Lamy actually wears a dress from Rick Owens' strobe for 2022. I love how he just hangs around in his fucking studio topless, by the way. I guess that's a big part of his. He's always been into his physical, you know, his physique in general. I think he's a big proponent, obviously, health and fitness and shit. But I love how he just struts around his fucking design studio topless, you know, putting on glamorous outfits on his models, on his test models, on his fit models. I think is what they're called. Draping shit, cutting shit, making shit. I fucking love it. So let's see the interview. Do you remember when you met Michelle? Says Steph Yokta. Rick Owens. I probably met her at a party at her house. At that time, I was hanging out with Rick Castro. He's a fetish photographer now, but he was a stylist then. And I was hanging with Vaginal Davis. I love that name. Vaginal Davis and Glenn Meadmore, who were performing in clubs. And they were kind of drag, but kind of punk. And Glenn did this weird cowboy drag with eyelashes and a bad wig and a cowboy skirt and pants and sang cowboy techno punk songs about cornhole me and peel it back grandpa. By the way, the bar or the party that Michelle Lamy used to run was incredible. I forgot the name of it. I think it's Salon des Amateurs. I think I think that's what it's called. But she used to own and run this cafe, this club, restaurant thing that was legendary in Paris. I remember reading loads of great fucking interviews about it and about her, and that was always one of my kind of like North Stars when it came to opening my own club or my own space, like capturing that vibe and that atmosphere of those kind of early resident advisor event reviews, the early review for I think it's from the Paris review of Michelle Lamy's club and restaurant and bar, whatever it was called. Like that whole vibe, that whole community, that whole scene it captured was fucking incredible. So it's cool to see them at a party. Sounds amazing. Rick Owens says Glenn is like 7 feet tall and super skinny. He was also maniacal. He would just throw himself all over the stage and he would hurt himself. I mean, he was just totally reckless, which was a part of his charm. I remember this New Year's Eve, and I remember he squatted on a beer bottle and then gripped it with his ass, and he sang his song with a beer bottle up his ass. Bloody hell. Anyway, Glenn and Vaginal were part of Michelle's group too. I remember Glenn and Vaginal kind of standing on platforms or something on each side of the entrance to Michelle's house and going in, and that was where I met her. And I have a feeling, but I remember I was drunk at the same time, so my memory is a bit frozen. Was it love at first sight? It was attraction, he says. But everybody was and is attracted to Michelle at first sight. She has so much magnetism and allure. She is always incredibly attracted to me. But then I started noticing her afterwards. When we started working together, she always wore little tights with jackets or something. Running around in little tights, she was very cute. The hair, the jewelry, everything. And then the way she was. Oh, lovely. That's fucking beautiful. I love how he's describing her, man. Looking super cute, looking really hot in all this amazing designer. Was it around the same moment that you felt that you sort of became Rick Owens? You spoke a lot about a transformation from a small town sissy to a more realized version of yourself. He says, when I met Michelle, I was pretty fully formed because I had left trade school and was working in a garment industry and I had a job. And I had enough money to live and enjoy myself and go out and go to these nice restaurants and every once in a while. There was a minute early on where I started working that I was at my most flamboyant, where I felt, wow, I can do whatever I want and this is what I want to do. I got to LA in like 79, 80. I had 10 years to sow my oats. I kind of toned it down by the time I met Michelle. The 90s were with Michelle. Everything since then, Michelle. It's kind of wild how he doesn't get enough props in the US for being such a great, legendary American designer. He's mostly associated with Europe when he's basically American and got his career in fashion, started off in fashion by working over there, especially on the West Coast. But I don't feel like you hear that a lot from the American press. They don't really celebrate him that much. I feel like he gets more celebrated here in Europe and obviously in Asia and shit. Doesn't really get lauded as much as he probably should over there in America. I'm not sure what that is. Like for instance, I think Marc Jacobs is revered way more than Rick Owens is, especially by the American fashion press. Not sure why that is. But regardless, let's scroll down. I love this picture of them together, by the way. It's fucking beautiful. Let's continue here. Oh, we don't do that. What we're doing is close that. Let's scroll down. What is it like for this shoot to dress Michelle in these clothes? It's what we do. It's not unusual. It's a fun way of playing for us. Yeah. That's something that I think a lot of people are doing nowadays, by the way. Basically hooking up with people with great style just so they can create content and have fun dressing up. I think there's one guy that went viral on my side of fashion Twitter who was who first everybody thought was really cute because he buys his girlfriend like really rare archive pieces of fashion, and then they saw him dress her and they saw how he was like kind of admiring her physique and body checking her and grabbing her waist and shit, and a lot of women felt like he was kind of like he was kind of treating her like an object, like a thing, and not actually treating her like a person. So people kind of got grossed out by it. But I'm seeing that being a bit of trend. I've noticed that as guys, basically hooking up with girls that have great style just for the content, which is kind of crazy, but whatever works for you. What's the secret to a long and happy marriage? He says, I have no idea. Well, you have one. He says, I know, but it's just luck. It's also a happy marriage in a business. The business partners I have are the ones that I started out with that never happens, and they just found me. I feel like you're being a little bit too humble about all of this, if I could be honest. I'm absolutely not. It's totally magic because it just doesn't make any sense. I remember there was some little voice in the back of my head thinking, well, I just have to get through this now because one day I won't have to deal with my finances. Where did this arrogance come from? Where did that entitlement come from? I definitely was financially insecure at the beginning, but then there was this arrogance, this entitlement that I knew I had something special. That's where the drinking came in because I had to really get out and promote myself in a way that was not comfortable for me. I was just like, I just got to survive, tread water and keep yourself out there until somebody finds you and that you can help. That's exactly what I did, and they showed up. Yeah, but in the end, I think it's the clothing. I think obviously he must have networked, he must have did well, especially in that early scene in fashion, especially back then too, getting out and about, going to fucking gallery openings, clubs and shit, business, all that sort of stuff helps. But I think in general, the clothes sold themselves. The quality of it, the cut, the silhouettes, the materials, all of that fucking stuff actually is what separated Rick Owens from everybody else and made people instant fans like myself. I was already selling clothes at the right stores, Maria Luisa in Paris, Charivari in New York, and maybe Browns in London. Big up Browns, legendary London luxury store here. That's how they found me. Luca and Elsa proposed distributing me and hooking me up with a license in Italy. They wanted to start their own thing, and that was their first project. I think their plan was to have a group with other brands, but they got so absorbed in us. There was so much to do. As our business grew, they didn't have time to take anybody else on. So I literally just made myself available in public and waited for something to show up, and it actually happened. How often does that happen? And how often does it happen that you end up with the right people for you? That's very true. That's very true. I love how he's honest about that, by the way, because people tend to like overstate their influence or their effect on certain things that happen in their life. And sometimes it could just be pure luck. Sometimes, obviously, you put yourself out there, you're the talent, you work hard, but sometimes it does require a bit of luck. It does require a bit of happenstance, crossing the paths with the right people, getting seen by the right people, having the right people put their arms around you, whatever it might be, all that stuff, even in the background. That's super, super important. So I love how he's emphasizing this. It continues. If there's a disagreement in the business, who wins the argument, you or Elsa? She says, I can't really think of any conflict. I'm sure there were minor ones, but we're both so solution oriented that neither of us really wants to waste time. We can figure things out and each figure things out by themselves. It's a marriage. The other thing is she and Luca have so much kind respect for what I do. They don't try to influence that. It's really the same for me to her. I would never have gotten her without Elsa. I've never gotten here without Elsa. I'm not going to second guess her. That's awesome. That's probably the benefit of having a good business relationship. Somebody that looks after the business, that you trust intrinsically, and also you can kind of be let loose to do what you want creatively without having people trying to influence what you do. Like Michelle Labby, by the way, looking incredible. I love the fact that she hasn't touched up her face too much. She may have done little things, but I love the fact that she's kind of allowed her to grow herself old, you know? She's not kind of going for crazy work to kind of like appear to be younger than what she is. I love that she kind of embraces her look and kind of leans into it and makes it work for herself. What else it says here? In 90, okay, cool. You always speak about your clothing as being a rebellion of a reaction against conservative norms. Maybe the first time you spoke, you did say something like, I'm not niche, I'm mainstream now. Did I? I love the did I quote. Yes, I remember because I called you niche and you corrected me. 10 years later, you're absolutely right. I wish I was niche. Niche sounds better. I wasn't being arrogant. I was kind of resigning myself to the fact that I've been overexposed myself and sold out. Wow, I love how fucking honest, brutally honest and observant fucking Rick Owens is, man. I love it. I was kind of resigning myself to the fact that I've been overexposed myself and I've sold out. I always think if you know who I am, you're already decided. But then I forget that there's a new people every day who are starting to notice aesthetics or who are starting to consider the aesthetic choices they're making. They're just starting to become aware. And like I did when I saw Bowie on Saturday Night Live. What do you feel like you have to rebel against now? Judgment, he says. My biggest motivation is to combat judgment. That's what the pentagrams are for. They're playful, they're kitsch, and they're camp. But they're also about otherness. They're also about people who have been condemned for otherness, like witches burned at the stake. They were probably just really fun people. It's hilarious, by the way. People's instincts to condemn things that they don't completely understand or are not completely comfortable with, that condemnation is something that I've experienced. The judgment, the condemnation, the contempt. I feel what everyone else is going through. You think I'm weird? I'm going to show you weird. Especially now, because condemnation is so pervasive and so accepted. It is just so dumb. The other lesson is judgment has always been there. It's never going away. It's part of the glory and the horror of life. Just like evil and pain and suffering. Somewhere it serves a purpose, an awful purpose, but it's part of life. What's judging you? You can see a lot. Who's judging you? You can see a lot of lies online about me being satanic pedophile with AIDS or whatever. Jesus Christ. I guess he sees the Instagram posts and stuff. Damn. The stuff you see about Michelle is worse. 100%. She gets it so much on social. Honestly. She gets it so much, man. She gets pelted with that satanic, demonic shit online. Especially from Black Twitter. They fucking hate it. I don't know if it reached a new level where I get more than normal people would. But I think anybody can relate to being judged viciously or just unfairly. That's what I'm reacting against. You react to judgment in a judgment. You react to judgment in a very peaceful way. Will you watch the inauguration later today? He says, oh no. People like Trump react to judgment in selfishness and vitriol and evil. You react with your work, which is so welcoming and beautiful. Rick Owens replies, I just want to provide an alternative, a retreat. It's not a manifesto. There's always been a part of the world that's like me. So this is a part of the world that I'm here to celebrate and embrace. When I said I was mainstream, it's like my niche spilled over somehow. Remember when I did my book about Larry Lagaspy? This makes me think of him because he had a very specific flamboyant Manhattan kind of aesthetic. Is that Larry Lagaspy the same person that influenced the fucking Kiss boots? I think that might be him in it. I think that's the same guy that influenced the Kids, if I'm mistaken. Then somehow he applied to black soul culture with La Belle, and that spark created something. Then somehow he got connected to Stadium Rock with Kiss, and that spark became part of American culture. So you just never know where things are going to leak out. I think somewhere what I did is similar to that a little bit. Yeah, I definitely fucking agree. I definitely fucking agree with Rick on that one. Let's continue one a little bit more. What's that like? A knife in your heart. Okay, cool. Let's go here. Let's preview this. The Larry collection for 2019 to me felt like a turning point for you. The clothes got more glamorous in a traditional sense of glamour. You could also see obvious through lines in your work platforms, black drapery, but there were also moments when you had a marked change. Probably the one that's most blatant that everybody has noticed is the period where the clothes started getting more abstract and more constructed. Glitter for 2017. That was very much about Michelle. That's when she started wearing Comme des Garçons. I endorsed it, of course, because nobody on the planet can wear Comme des Garçons better than her. I definitely agree with that one. Especially some of the runway pieces I've seen her wear, fucking brilliant. Especially some of the weird stuff with all the lumps and bumps everywhere. She fucking makes it incredible. Wasn't it like it wasn't like a violent conflict, but I did feel like you are part of this world. This is our survival, and you represent that. We built this whole thing to support you and me, and then for you to endorse somebody else felt like betrayal. Wow, or disloyal. As a partner, you should be promoting what we're surviving on. Her answer was so good. You know what? I just feel more powerful in her clothes. Fair, because you know, Comme des Garçons is like a lot of female empowerment with the stuff that she wears. But I wonder if there's a through line of connection between the time Michelle Lamy started to wear more Comme des Garçons and when fucking Tyrone Dillon popped up. Because people speculate for a long time that Rick Owens and Tyrone Dillon are more than just work colleagues. And maybe Tyrone is like a side piece, you know? Maybe. I love him. One of my favorite people to follow on social media. I love stealing some of his fucking some of his workouts, some of his fucking looks and screenshotting it. You know, I'm a big fan of the guy. But people do say that they're involved in some respect. So I wonder if that's when Rick Owens started to look elsewhere for inspiration, you know? When Michelle Lamy started to wear more Comme des Garçons. Was that like a knife in your heart when Michelle Lamy started wearing Comme des Garçons? It definitely stung. But I also had to look at it from an objective eye. This is what life is about. Everything that happens, I'm going to use it. Nothing is off limits. Everything is personal. So I thought I'm going to do a blob like that. Comme des Garçons doesn't have a monopoly on blobs. Everything that we do as creators is a composition of everything that we've seen before. That's a quote taken from Rick Owens that directly relates to what Virgil used to say when he was alive. RIP to the GOAT. About everything is a copy. Take something, copy it by 3%, or copy and tweak it by 3%. Everyone's copying everybody. There is no original thought underneath the sun. So this is Rick Owens confessing that he was copying Comme des Garçons because his wife was wearing Comme des Garçons and he felt a bit jealous that she was wearing it, not his own brand. So he wanted to kind of show that he could do what Comme des Garçons also did and copy them and did it in his own way. Love it, love it, love it. Everything that we do as creators is a composition of everything that we've seen before. It could be a Comme des Garçons blob. It could be a Peter Pan collar from Givenchy dress from 1950s. We're all using that stuff. Com is using straps from Johnny Rotten's leather jackets. Obviously, there was some level of discomfort, like, how can I process all of this tiny sense of betrayal? Michelle was my best client. How do I follow along with her evolution and the way that she feels about herself as she's physically changing? That was your only stylistic pivot? I can see that one best. A lot of people have told me that they see the minutes that Tyrone Dillon, Sussman, designer, stylist showed up. That changed things too. It made people say things like Tyrone has ruined everything. Is that true? I think Tyrone has done pretty well. I think he looks really good in this stuff. Some people don't agree. Tyrone's ruined everything. But there are other people that think, and people in my team who think Tyrone's the best thing that has ever happened to us. That's me. I also think that. It got us a new perspective in the world, and those are the most blatant ones that I can think of. I'm sure I could point out more. There's a picture of Rick fixing a hat or something onto Michelle Lamy's face or head, sorry. Looking incredible. I feel like even that tattoo on his arm, I feel like he's even popularized that. I feel like people have gotten a similar tattoo to Rick Owens, the one that he's got here on top of his bicep. To me, Rick Owens' career has 4 chapters. Okay, cool. Is that what he's saying there, or is that what she's saying? To me, Rick Owens has 4 chapters. The California early days, which little documentation exists, except for the biased leather jackets worn by Courtney Love and Corinne Day and Kate Moss. Wow, that's early, isn't it? Imagine having that jacket from the first collections. Then this ethereal, heavenly era, a transition from underground to above ground. Those fashion shows of his early Parisian fashion days and angels and nuns, wafting chiffon and revealing jerseys. Even if it's gothic, there is a sweetness to his first decades in Paris, an optimism of finding oneself in a place was always meant to be. As the world turned more brutal in the early 2010s, so did Owens' work, and in 2014, he hung a punk band upside down on the runway that began a 3rd chapter of showmanship. In 2014, Step Dancers showed a woman hung upside down from another collection in 2016. The Glitter Collection is 2017, and the 2018 collection where the funeral pyre burned at the center of the runway. Then lastly, with the Larry collections in 2019, Owens began to flirt with glamour. He's doing mermaid hems, hot pink, gold, even more voluptuous platforms and sequins, and morphing them into a ravishing rebellion against the horrors of the 2020 or 2020s. Do you have a favorite collection? I have a few. I like those glitter collections. There was a response to Michelle Lamy Comme des Garçons. I accepted the challenge and I responded with my solution. The Step Team show is so beautiful, but it's also slightly unnerving because I can see how there could be a raised eyebrow. I mean the tension, and that was wrong. Was it right? There was something about it that was challenging and interesting. I feel like it could have gone wrong, but it didn't. With every show, you can see how there's still a rage in me. I have to admit, now it's almost a moral duty, being a reaction to judgment and condemnation. Now I almost feel like an evangelical urge. If I do well, and if people want to buy my clothes and know about me, I can talk about it more and push my agenda, which is one of the best things I can do in my life. I have the power to lend my voice to the opposition force of Trump. It's a small voice, but it's something I can do. Okay, I love that. Controlled or purposeful opposition through the conduit of fashion. All right, that's interesting. What's your worst collection? Oh, I'm not going to tell you that because people who have clothes from that collection, but there was a few that Elsa and I always refer to. We just drop the name every once in a while. Hilarious. So there is one. So there is one. That's a key word. There is. Actually, I would cringe 5 years ago when I look back at it. I look at it now and I'm going, oh, well, there are some cute ideas here. Will you tell me off the record? I don't want to manifest it. I love it. I fucking love it. Let's continue here. When he was a child, Owens would listen to his father reading fantasy books like Edgar Rice Burroughs. The covers illustrated by Frank Frazetta feature bulging male figures. Look how cool she looks, man. Look how cool Michelle Lamy looks. Like all this stuff people are still doing now and copying her with, you know. The dip fingers, which I know she copied elsewhere, but everything. The makeup, the eyeliner, the little markings on the forehead, the slick back hair. She's incredible. I heard that when you walk into the Temple of Love exhibition, the first thing you see is a statue of you peeing. Oh, not the first thing. That's the finale. I did it originally for Petty Imagine 20 years ago. It was pissing on a pile of mirrors in a little pile of dirt. It was referencing that picture that I'd done a long time ago of me pissing in my mouth in ID. So I used to piss a lot. I piss in one of my motives. I actually explain it on the studio audio guide in French. I love it. I heard you were learning French. How's it going? Oh, wow. Yeah, this is a fucking meme. He's always been learning French, man. This is incredible. He still can't speak French. He's had his studio he's had his Rick Owens studio in Paris for like 20 years, I feel like. He still has not learned a lick of French. It's fucking incredible. Especially in that city, because French people, as you guys will probably know, they are so fucking finicky about people that don't learn French. Like, they really get pissed off with you if you speak English to them. They really, some of them even can speak English and won't speak it because you're speaking English. They want you to make an effort to speak French. So the fact that he's gotten away with it is really good, and also goes to show that he lives in another world because he's a designer. Obviously, he doesn't really have to interact with regular people that much with the French. I heard you trying to learn French. How's it going? He says it's terrible. I FaceTime with my instructor every morning at 11, like 6 days a week. Wow, he does it a lot. One of the texts in the studio is about piss in French. I'm going to read it to you in French. Okay. I'll try to understand. Owen starts reading it in French. In 2002, I was spreading ID magazine of a self-portrait. I'm not reading that quite. Oh, look at this picture. Wow. Look at that. Look at that dress. Amazing. Michelle Lamy wears a dress from Rick Owens' Luxor 2023 collection. It continues here. In 2018, no, there's a lot of salmon in this exhibition. Part of that I realize is the kind of underline the fact that I'm not doing anything new. My gloomy pursuit of transcendence has been a part of symbolist culture of the Paris since Gustave Moreau's time. I have some Gustave Moreau's painting in the exhibition, but I also have some John Chamberlain foam sculptures that I think are very American. It's a great contrast. This big foam blob next to this exquisite angel, and there was a Moreau painting called Angels of Sodom that was always my favorite, but they wouldn't lend it to me. That was one because it was too famous. In 2008, you made a reusable cock ring fashioned out of a goat's eyelid, sold in a toeskin case. Where do you source such materials? Okay, I didn't invent this. What do you mean? I found them in a sex shop. There's a sex shop in Rue de Saint-Denis that sells them, and they come in little cardboard envelopes, and they got a little slip of paper with instructions in bad English. I included the instructions exactly the way they came. It says that you have to moisten it, and then you have to place it over the acom of the penis. I guess that's the head. I still don't understand how it should work. I would assume it's going to do anything. I don't really see how it can. If it's with the eyelashes, of course. What's the point? You found toad skin to sell it in? No, we made them. Of course, the goat's eye cock ring is the weirdest thing. It's also most resourceable, sustainable even. He says, yes, glamorous and weird is glamorous. Well, it was grotesque. That's what it was. The fact of putting it in a glamorous white bleached albino toad skin case and putting it in a high fashion context, that was just some symbolism. Dardiest shit. Any other secrets you want to share with me? I'm such a blabbermouth. I'll just give everything away, which I love about him, by the way. I also have secrets. Also, secrets seems little vain. Why do I think my life is so important that anything is worth keeping a secret? I love this perspective. On the other hand, oversharing is tacky and a bit narcissistic. I love the duality. Michelle called me a narcissist once. I was like, where did she pick this word? Am I? I'm always curious about that side of me. I did somewhere have to have this confidence and arrogance to insist what I was doing was worth looking at. For somebody as overly sensitive and fragile as I was when I was young, to have figured out how to get there, I think if somebody's listening, it proves that if I can do it, anybody can do it. So that's why I overshare. I think that's the case with all narcissists. I think all narcissists by default are very sensitive. You can't be a narcissist and not be sensitive, you know? You can't. It's just part and parcel of it. So, and I also think being a narcissist isn't always a bad thing, right? It's never always a bad thing, but it's one of those kind of like in vogue words like gaslighting and shit that people are kind of very hip to and kind of point to whenever they encounter somebody who's maybe a little bit self-centered and a little bit self-absorbed. It continues. At the beginning of our conversation, Owens produced a scan of his birth chart made by his late father, John Owens. Ricardo Soteria Owens was born in 1931 AM on November 18, 1961 in Encino, California. He is a Scorpio sun and Capricorn rising. His father, a conservative bigot, Owens described, said that I felt he was a bigoted in another article. After that, he never spoke to me again. Wow. Jesus. I think it was a middle name somewhere down the line. I'll tell you what I know of Saturn. Saturn is the father. Okay, we don't care about all that sort of shit. And that's it. Big up the interview. Really amazing interview. I really recommend you check it out. Rick Owens, courtesy of ID Magazine. Loads of great pictures in there featured of Rick Owens kind of dressing Michelle Owens in their studio, talking really lovingly about their relationship, about his inspirations, about his muse, about his philosophy, about his everything. So I really recommend you check it out. I'm probably going to go out and buy the magazine to get a copy of this, hard copy of this, so I can add it to my collection. It probably might be, I think this is the magazine that has JT on the cover too. The JT cover is fucking incredible, by the way. Big up JT. So yeah, definitely check out this Rick Owens interview. Loads of fucking great pictures, loads of great insights and information. Rick Owens is the GOAT. Rick Owens is the blood clot GOAT.